Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Artificial Fluency. I'm your host, John, and today we're diving into one of the most significant events in human history, World War II. As always, I'm joined by our AI companion, Emma. This is a topic that's particularly close to my heart, as my grandfather served in the Pacific Theater.
Hello, John, and hello to all our listeners. You're right about the significance of World War II. It was truly a global conflict that reshaped our world in countless ways. The war lasted from 1939 to 1945, involving nearly every nation and resulting in an estimated 70 to 85 million fatalities.
Those numbers are staggering, Emma. Let's help our listeners understand how this massive conflict began. I think many people might be surprised to learn that the seeds of World War II were actually planted in the aftermath of World War I.
Exactly. The harsh terms of the Treaty of Versailles, which ended World War I, left Germany with significant grievances. The country lost territory, was forced to pay massive reparations, and faced strict military limitations. This created fertile ground for the rise of extremist ideologies, particularly the Nazi Party, led by Adolf Hitler.
You know, I've always found it fascinating how economic hardship and national humiliation can lead to the rise of extremism. The German people were looking for someone to blame for their troubles, and Hitler provided them with scapegoats while promising to restore German greatness.
The pattern of economic hardship leading to extremism is indeed a recurring theme in history, John. By 1933, Hitler had become Chancellor of Germany, and he quickly transformed the country into a dictatorship. Meanwhile, in Asia, Imperial Japan was pursuing its own aggressive expansion, invading Manchuria in 1931 and China in 1937.
Let's break this down into key phases for our listeners. The war officially began in Europe on September 1st, 1939, when Germany invaded Poland. Emma, can you walk us through what happened next?
After the invasion of Poland, Britain and France declared war on Germany, honoring their commitments to Poland. However, the Soviet Union, having signed a non-aggression pact with Germany, invaded Poland from the east. The country was effectively divided between Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union.
I think it's important to note here that while we often think of World War II as a clear fight between good and evil, the reality was more complex. The Soviet Union, which later became a crucial Allied power, initially cooperated with Nazi Germany in the invasion of Poland.
That's an excellent point, John. The war's early phase, often called the Phony War, saw relatively little fighting in Western Europe. However, this changed dramatically in April and May 1940 when Germany invaded Denmark, Norway, Belgium, the Netherlands, and France using their blitzkrieg tactics.
The fall of France in just 6 weeks was a shocking development. Here was one of Europe's major powers, defeated in less time than a modern football season. It really showed how warfare had changed since World War I.
The speed of France's defeat was indeed remarkable. By summer 1940, Britain stood alone in Western Europe against Nazi Germany. This led to the Battle of Britain, where the Royal Air Force successfully defended against German air attacks, marking Hitler's first major defeat.
That's right. My British friends always emphasize how crucial this period was. Prime Minister Winston Churchill's famous words, "Never in the field of human conflict was so much owed by so many to so few," really captured the significance of the RAF's victory.
The war took another major turn in June 1941, when Germany launched Operation Barbarossa, invading the Soviet Union in what would become the largest military operation in history. This opened the Eastern Front, where some of the war's bloodiest battles would be fought.
And then, of course, there's December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy, as President Roosevelt said. The Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor brought the United States fully into the war.
Yes, the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor was a pivotal moment. Japan aimed to prevent the United States from interfering with its military operations in Southeast Asia against British, Dutch, and French territories. However, the attack achieved the opposite of its intended effect, unifying American public opinion in favor of entering the war.
I've visited Pearl Harbor, and it's still such a moving experience. The USS Arizona Memorial really brings home the human cost of that attack. But Let's talk about how the tide of the war began to turn.
The tide began to turn in 1942 to 43 with several crucial battles: the Soviet victory at Stalingrad, the Allied victory at El Alamein in North Africa, and the American victory at Midway in the Pacific. These battles marked the beginning of the end for the Axis powers.
The scale of the Soviet contribution to defeating Nazi Germany often surprises people. The Eastern Front was where the majority of German military casualties occurred.
Indeed, the Soviet Union suffered tremendous losses, an estimated 27 million people, but their resistance and eventual counteroffensive were crucial to Allied victory. Meanwhile, the Western Allies were gaining strength. The D-Day landings in Normandy on June 6, 1944, opened a second major front in Europe.
And in the Pacific, the island hopping campaign was bringing American forces closer to Japan. But then, we come to one of the most controversial decisions of the war: the use of atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
This is indeed one of the most debated decisions in military history. The atomic bombings on August 6th and 9th, 1945, killed between 129,000 and 226,000 people. While these attacks led to Japan's surrender and prevented a costly invasion of Japan, their use remains controversial to this day.
The effects of World War II went far beyond the military outcome. Emma, could you outline some of the major changes that resulted from the war?
The war completely reshaped the global order. The United States and the Soviet Union emerged as global superpowers, while European colonial empires began to crumble. The United Nations was established to maintain international peace. The war also led to significant social changes, including increased women's participation in the workforce and advances in technology.
And let's not forget the human cost. The Holocaust, the systematic murder of 6 million European Jews, along with millions of others deemed undesirable by the Nazi regime, revealed humanity's capacity for organized evil.
The Holocaust indeed stands as one of the darkest chapters in human history. It led to the development of new international laws regarding genocide and crimes against humanity, and the phrase, "never again," became a powerful reminder of our collective responsibility to prevent such atrocities.
Looking back at World War II, what do you think are the most important lessons for today's world?
Several key lessons stand out. First, the importance of confronting aggression and extremism before they become too powerful. Second, the value of international cooperation and strong alliances. And third, the devastating human cost of total war and the importance of maintaining peace.
Those are crucial lessons, especially in today's world. Before we wrap up, I think we should mention that World War II's influence continues to be felt today, from international institutions to geopolitical relationships and military alliances.
Absolutely. The post-war order established after 1945, including NATO, the United Nations, and various international financial institutions, continues to shape our world. The war also led to significant technological advances, from jet engines to computers, that transformed civilian life.
Thank you, Emma, for helping us understand this crucial historical event. To our listeners, we've covered a lot of ground today, but there's so much more to learn about World War II. I encourage you to explore the specific aspects that interest you most.
Thank you, John. And thank you to our listeners. While we can study World War II as history, we should never forget that it was experienced by real people: soldiers, civilians, survivors, and victims. Their stories remind us why we must work to prevent such conflicts in the future.
That's a perfect note to end on. Join us next time on Artificial Fluency for more fascinating historical discussions. Until then, keep exploring history,